Hi class, we are getting into Chapter 2, Lesson 1. Chapter 2 as a whole is titled Rational Numbers. And this first lesson here, we are going to deal with what are rational numbers and how to kind of convert them into different forms. So a rational number, let's go over some vocab up top here, is a number that can be written as the ratio of two integers. So it can be written as a ratio. So for example, 1 to 2 or 1/2. So we have our fractions, or we can write that as a decimal. So remember, rational numbers are our fractions and our decimals. They're not our whole numbers. Integers were our whole numbers. Now rational, we're getting into our fractions and decimals. I know for some of us, that's our favorite thing. Next, we have different types of decimals. We have a terminating decimal, which means that it comes to an end. So 3.25 is an example of a terminating decimal. It stops. Think of maybe, has anybody seen the movie The Terminator? Or there's the word to terminate. It means to end something. Next, a repeating decimal is exactly how it sounds. It's going to repeat. So a repeating decimal is a decimal that has a number or pattern that repeats. So either one number or a group of numbers repeat each other. So to show a repeating decimal, we can use these 3 dots. We can write ... Or probably the way most of you have seen it now is where you put a line over the number or numbers that repeat. All right, let's get into some conversions. If we are converting from a fraction to a decimal, let's focus on this box to the left here first. Make sure you're kind of highlighting with me, writing everything down that I'm writing, and following along here. So let's look at this first example. We want to go from 5/11. I want to convert that to a decimal. Now think about what operation is a fraction. What is this bar really telling us to do? Hopefully you're thinking division and you're correct. Really, this is 5 being divided by 11. So to convert a fraction to a decimal, we have to do long division. So I'm going to write that out. The 5, the top, goes in the house. It's 5 being divided by 11. Okay, top goes in the box. Think of a box top. Does anybody know what those are? They usually come on like those cereal boxes. You used to have to cut them out and collect them at school. So the top number goes in the house. Another way to think of it is like the top dog or the top place person gets in the house. The bottom person is out of the house. So now we just do our long division. How many times can 11 go into 5? It can't. When something can't go into something, we add a 0. I also want to add that decimal to remind myself. So it can't go into 5. How many times can 11 go into 50? You're correct if you're saying 4. 4 times 11, that would give us 44. We're just doing our long division here. 50 minus 44, maybe you're borrowing. 10 minus 4 is 6. So now 11 can't go into 6. Remember, we add a 0, bring it down once we finish the subtraction. Now how many times can 11 go into 60? 5 times, that gives us 55. 60 minus 55 gives me 5. Now, how many times can 11 go into 5? It can't, but remember, we didn't finish that step. Add a 0, bring it down. How many times can 11 go into 50? Hopefully you're thinking 4. Again, we're with 44. Does anyone notice what is happening? We're back to 6. We'd have 60 again, so we'd have a 5. We're repeating here. What numbers are repeating? We actually have 2 numbers that are repeating. We have our 4 and our 5. Don't forget that decimal is out front there. So 5 over 11 as a decimal is 0.45 repeating. Remember, you put that repeating sign over top both numbers, or however many numbers are repeating, what pattern is going to continue on. Another way, like I mentioned earlier, you could write it with those 3 dots after it, showing that it continues on. But I'd say this is kind of our most common way we'll be writing it, and you'll be seeing it. So when we're converting a fraction to a decimal, you want to do long division. What happens if we're converting a decimal to a fraction? Let's do it the other way around. I'm given this decimal, negative 0.26. Now I want to ask you, how would I say that decimal? 26 hundredths. I have negative 26 hundredths. So to help yourself, you can either say it out loud, that's going to help you write it as a fraction, or you would just need to know your place values. You look at which number, the last number, which place value that 6 is in. If we remember, the 2 is in the tenths, the 6 is in the hundredths. So I have negative 26 over 100 since it's in the hundredths place. So now I have it as a fraction, but we always want to put our fraction into simplest form. Can I simplify this? Should be thinking yes. Even if you're just looking at them too, you're like, what can I divide 26 and 100 by? Well, I know they're both even, so I can definitely divide them by 2. So if you just need to start there, start there. 26 divided by 2 gives me 13. 100 divided by 2 gives me 50. Keep your negative sign. If it's a negative decimal, it should be a negative fraction. And actually here, that's it. That's all as far as we can go. So I have negative, I'm going to write that in my answer box, 13 over 50. That is this decimal as a fraction. So when we're changing a decimal to a fraction, you want to think of your place values. You want to think about how would I read or say that decimal that helps you. So real quick, let's do some place value review. We can see that box right below. Let's do this so that you will remember and have this. So right here, that black point, this is our decimal. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's work to the left of the decimal. Let's move in this direction first. That's typically the easier direction. To the left is where our whole numbers are. Okay, so when we're moving to the left, our very first place is our ones. After our ones is our tens. After our tens is our hundreds. You can write the whole word out. After our hundreds is our thousandths. And then after our thousands, this take me a while to write on here, so hopefully you're writing with me. After 1,000 comes our 10,000. Right, like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and so on. After our thousands comes our 100,000s, and then our last one, 100, as far as I'm going to have you go today at least. So this is our 100, and this pen does not want to write for me today. 100,000. So go ahead and write all that down for me. And then our last spot here that I just have us going out to the millions. And then it does keep going, but for our sake, we're going to stop there. Now, to the right of our decimals where it gets a little trickier. This is where we typically get a little confused. To the right, though, is our tenths. actually, let me erase this arrow for you guys so we have enough room. Goes tenths. So let's write this. After our tenths comes our hundredths. See how I'm enunciating? It has those TH at the end, meaning it's smaller. The further to the right you go after a decimal, the smaller it gets. We have our tenths, hundredths, and then we have our thousandths. And again, it could keep going, but those are just our important ones that I want you to know and remember. Make sure you have those THs at the end. Makes a difference. So make sure you have that entire place value chart labeled. Hopefully your writing's a little better than mine. Pen doesn't want to cooperate on this iPad today. So that's important, and these are really important, our place values, especially to the right of our decimal when we're trying to determine or change from a decimal to a fraction. You want to be able to know how to say your decimals and write them as a fraction. So if we had a decimal go out to our thousandths, it would be over 1,000 then, and you always want to simplify your fractions when you're changing or converting if you can. Okay. Alrighty, so we're gonna get lots of practice in with that. Our last thing here, we wanna know which of the sea creatures are deeper than the whale. So we have all of these creatures in this table here. We have our anglerfish, our squid, shark, whale. In order to compare positions, they have to be in the same form, either all fractions or all decimals. You can change them to whatever you would like, but just know that if you are changing them all to a fraction, in order to compare them and order them, they would all have to then be converted to have the same denominator. Okay? Also notice that these are all negatives, meaning we're below water, right? They're all sea creatures, they're underwater, they're under sea level is 0. So what I would suggest you do, and I'm not going to go through this entire thing with you. I want you to now convert all of your either fractions to decimals or decimals to fractions and then have them all have the same denominator. Try to figure out which of the sea creatures are deeper than the whale. Try that on your own. Let us know if you have questions or are stuck. I'm not going to go through that one. This one I want to kind of leave as like open-ended, nice challenge for you. But again, we're going to do more practice with this. You're going to work with this. We'll do some together in class, or if you are virtual, you'll get more videos with these, or we'll work on Wednesdays together more. But go ahead and try that little challenge on your own. I challenge you to try this word problem. I mean, I'm not going to check it or anything. I just want you to see maybe what you get. I added this vertical number line here if you kind of want to say like, oh, this is sea level, this is 0, and then label going down which creature comes first, which one's the highest versus lowest. I want to know which are deeper than the whale. Okay, good luck. Try that out.